I'm proud to have worked very closely with our trade union colleagues when I was Transport Minister, working with the RMT and ASLEF, the likes of the Scottish Police Federation, the Prison Officers Association when I was Justice Secretary, and of course the myriad of excellent health trade unions that I've worked with most recently as Health Secretary. We've not, unsurprisingly, agreed on everything, but I have always appreciated the constructive and open-minded attitude that you've brought to our discussions, the willingness to compromise, and that, of course, is always a two-way street. And I hope that anyone that has worked with me over the years in those various roles would say that I very much take the same approach. The recent NHS pay deal, I hope, is a really good example of what we've been able to achieve together. The negotiations were tough. You wouldn't expect anything other than that. But we engaged constructively. We reached and found a compromise. And as a result, Agenda for Change staff remain the best paid in the UK. And we've now agreed the most ambitious reform of Agenda for Change since its very inception. And of course, Scotland, the only part of the UK where not a single NHS worker went on strike during this really difficult winter. But I'm also well aware that in other sectors there will be more difficult discussions ahead. The pressures on the Scottish Government's fixed budget, our lack of borrowing powers, will make that undoubtedly inevitable. But my pledge to you is a very simple one, that under my leadership as First Minister, we will continue to engage meaningfully with our trade unions in that spirit of compromise. And we will do everything we can do in our gift to deliver fair pay and conditions for our public sector. And I don't need to tell you, delegates, that our approach stands in very stark contrast to the UK Government. Their open hostility to trade unions and their disregard for industrial relations could not be clearer. And perhaps the ultimate example of this is their abominable anti-strike legislation. By enabling employers to issue work notices, that legislation attacks the basic right of workers to withdraw their labour. Look, it may well inconvenience me politically when folk do choose to go on strike, but I will defend with every breath I have your right to go on strike. The Scottish Government is utterly opposed to this bill. If the UK Government aren't willing to withdraw it, then we have made the case, and I will, as First Minister, make the case very forcefully that this should not apply in Scotland. However, if the UK Government are hell-bent on applying this anti-strike legislation to Scotland, then my position could not be clearer. Be in no doubt. The Scottish Government will never issue or enforce a single work notice. We will continue to do everything we can to oppose this disgraceful, abhorrent legislation. It has no place here in Scotland. The key difference here is that we see our trade unions not as opponents, but as essential partners. We value the role that you play in society. We recognise your importance in helping Scotland meet some of the greatest challenges of our time. Tomorrow in the Parliament, I'll be setting out the Government's priorities for addressing those challenges over the next few years.